Okay, we are live. Let's see. Okay.
Yes, we are.
Welcome everyone to OFFERGOBLIN Live. I think this is episode 4. Who's counting? Today we're going to talk about a day in the life of an investment banker. So we're going to cover a few things. We're going to kind of go through chronologically what a typical day looks like. We're going to talk about some of the specific activities. We'll also talk a little bit about how some of that feels and like how you feel and how people survive and how to handle it and all those things. We're trying to kind of cut through with this series and cut into the real experience of it so that when you're getting into it, you're not surprised. And also because I think, we want people to come in and do well. And I think that the more that you really know about how it works, the better you'll do, the better you'll interview, the better you'll kind of know what you're signing up for. I think I'll disclaim that this is probably another episode we've done where banking probably doesn't shine in a good light. I do want to say that it is a great profession, but there is a lot of pain to it. We'll also talk about a lot of the good things as well to balance it out. And future episodes, I think in general, will probably be a little more positive, but there's always going to be that negative tint because banking is hard and it's a difficult thing to do. Anyway, let's get started. So what do analysts and associates actually do? We're going to talk about things like emailing and Excel and late nights and live deals. But before that, we'll check in with Ryan about the state of the union. How is the recruitment process going? What are candidates talking about? What's the latest? What's happening?
So I will say that the recruiting landscape it's tighter than, it's a difficult job market. It's that you still have the same theme that's been sort of playing out for the last few months where, yes, banks are making record profits. Banks have a lot of deals going on, but their need for junior folks is what they specifically are experienced junior folks who have run deals, who know how to execute on deals. Despite the fact that there are a lot of junior folks out on the street with no jobs, right? So it's this interesting dynamic where we have a lot of junior bankers have gotten laid off, right? As well as cut from downsizing, whether it's implementation of AI or just trying to control costs. But at the same time is banks are being very picky on who they hire, who they bring up, and keeping slots open for longer than you would expect.
Yeah. So what if sort of the students and the candidates that you work with, what types of things are they focused on this week? Like what are most people doing?
I think for the most part is like right now, main recruiting cycle is long over. You have people looking at whether they're prepping for full-time or their internship. And so the ones that are really sort of up ahead is that, hey, they know offers this year is going to be, lower than they would like. It's going to be very competitive. So you have the really intense ones. They've prepped, right? They are reading their sell-side research, following the markets, following the news, being up to speed. They're also prepping on their modeling, they're reviewing the technicals, and just making sure they're sharp and polished. I always think of it, or like I phrase it as taking variables off the table, so that it's like so many things can go wrong. Why not just make fewer things that can possibly go wrong? Remove those from things that can help, that can lose that offer for you. So
yeah, the way I like to think of it, I think it's Sun Tzu, and I've looked this up a million times and I can't find it, but it's something like, well, actually this one is Sun Tzu. So remove yourself from the possibility of defeat and then figure out how to win. And I think that's really the way you should think about banking recruitment, because odds are you're going to lose on the basis of a mistake that you've made that was easy. Like it was like you made a mistake in an email, or You didn't know kind of a sort of basic accounting concept, things like that. So those are the types of things you really want to get tight because you can control them. The other one is I think that people think, you want to play to be different. You want to play to show this, like, I've done all this research and I have all these different crazy ideas. But a lot of times it's the person who kind of has a boring sort of like turtle like approach to banking recruitment that does really well. And I think both Ryan and I have seen that across candidates and across just working in this area so long. So you would say the state of recruitment is rocky right now. You'd say that people are there's people that are booted out of people that are booted out of junior roles. People are getting nervous. There's a lot of you're saying there's a lot of tension. Is that an interpretation?
Yeah, and I don't see it easing up anytime soon. I think it's just going to be harder and more competitive as we keep going forward, which unfortunately seems to be the entire job market.
And I want to add, I'm working with a few candidates who are focused on lateral hiring. So they're going into a summer at either a bank that, they want to be at a different bank, or they got into a different area, and they're focused on lateral hiring. So it's not all, people just trying to survive. There's also people trying to push up. And I think, I've always felt like you should have that attitude of like, how do I play to win, which I know is contrary in a way to what I'm saying, and that you need to also be defensive, but it's better for you to try to play up to the next tier while kind of covering your bases, rather than kind of like worrying and just like staying where you are if you can. My philosophy. Okay, so let's start the discussion of the day in the life with the morning. So let's just talk about the morning time. I think one thing that surprises people about investment bankers is that they actually get up pretty late relative to the standards of other industries. So a lot of times people come into the office in New York at 10 a.m. Even on the West Coast, a lot of times people would be coming in at 10 a.m., which I was very surprised by, because there's this impression that banking, it's like, oh, you're going to get up, super early. And oftentimes you do, but it's really more of a night owl job. So the mornings are usually a little slower, typically from my experience. But how would you describe the morning? Maybe you can walk us through your morning ritual as a banking analyst.
Well, I will say this varies widely by group, right? And a lot of it is also things may have changed. I was an analyst 10 years ago. So my career, it's been a while. I actually chose to go into the office earlier. So my first year I got into the office 8:30 a.m. Actually, I was at my desk by 8:30. The first year I was there by 8. Then it slowly went to 8:30, and then by the time I hit like associate, and it was 9. But personally, I like to get in early. I ate breakfast at my desk, right? And so for me, it's quiet. I got my own time to work. The senior bankers tend to show up earlier, right? So this was also in New York. You have a lot of FaceTime. And so the whole idea, you show up and you could go down, you grab your bagel or your breakfast, or if you're at JP Morgan, you go to that new fancy, cafeteria that they built at the very bottom, right? Sure. And it was just, nobody's going to be calling you that early, most in terms of, and so it was just my time. It was always hard for me to work away at home. I like to keep home like a sanctuary. So I showed up at 8, and I started just checking my emails, grabbing breakfast, and then winning brownie points.
Yeah, I do sense that. Well, in the summer analysts would get in before anyone, and that was kind of, which I think is a good piece of advice. Even though it's sort of one of those things that it's a rule that doesn't have any. Like, I personally don't think that it's necessary, but it's one of those things that, as Ryan mentioned, it reflects well on you if you do that. So if you're going into your summer, I would recommend that you come in before everyone if you can. 8 a.m. is probably plenty sufficient of a time. Um, and then the so the other piece there that I think is interesting that people may not know, or maybe they do know, is that a lot of the banks have very generous food offerings. So because they want you to stay there. So a lot of them will have like cafeteria, they'll have like snacks, they'll have like food things. At a minimum, it'll be at like a pretty good discount if it's not free. But they definitely will want you to do what Ryan does, which is like come in and like eat there. And it's kind of this like life, that's kind of the part of the lifestyle. Like it's a very desk-based lifestyle. And they want you to kind of be comfortable in that, even though there may be this like sadism that perpetuates in the culture. There is or is sadism the right word, or is it masochism? I don't know. Sadism, I think is the right word.
Sadomasochism.
Or maybe it's both. But even though there is that, like they need you to survive, and they need you to stay there. So there is always very often free coffee. At Centerview there was like a free fridge of like energy drinks and everything. People were having Celsius
Okay.
all the time. And so the morning time, it's kind of a mixed bag. It's usually meetings, at least in my limited experience, were not early in the mornings. The mornings were kind of like a slowly shuttle in time. And part of the reason for that is because people would often be up very late. And so like coming in the morning, it was kind of like a flex time, but it was still very important that you responded to emails in the morning. So even if you
Yeah.
did get up, let's say you get into the office at 10, you'd still get emails from people that like are coming into the office at like 10, or some of them even by noon, but they're clearly like responding to emails and kind of active. So you basically wake up and you're active. Some people can like squeeze a workout in if they got enough sleep. Those sorts of things, depending on where you are, there can be a big commute. So a lot of people, for example, in the Bay Area, some people will live in the city and work in Menlo and they have to commute, or people will live outside of the city in New York and commute in. I would not recommend living that way. But those are all examples. So that's kind of the morning time. And people are more, I think, it's usually more individual work. It's usually kind of like shuffling in and kind of casual time. Lunchtime comes, and lunchtime is like, it can be really varied, obviously, but from noon to let's say like 2 or 3. Depending on the firm, there's different ways that this is handled in the office, but like at Centerview in New York, for example, they had like a big buffet. So you could get lunch there. You could kind of get whatever you want. In the Menlo office, we were like ordering food sometimes. People would order their own food. There was like a budget that people had for that. I'm not sure what's the standard there if people often go out. What kind of goes on with you, Ryan? How was your experience with that?
For lunch? You're talking about for lunch, right?
Yeah.
Or dinner? Well, dinner was always at the desk. Well, I'm happy to answer both. So lunch. So we had a cafeteria downstairs. So the quickest and easiest way was to go down and just grab something, right? Grab a sandwich or etc. But sometimes you use lunch if you didn't have any meetings or you didn't have any calls. So the Wells office is like all the the banks are located in 2 parts, right? Depending on where you are. You're going to have one group of banks near Midtown, right? Near the Grand Central area. And you'll have another group near FIDI, right? So if you're like Goldman, RBC, you're going to be in FIDI. And then if you're at JP, B of A, Wells moved up to Hudson Yards, and Morgan Stanley's in Times Square. They're generally around the Midtown area. So there's a lot of lunch options. And so if you didn't have any calls at the moment, it was like a great excuse just to go out to like stretch your legs to go and run and pick up lunch, right? Nobody's going to like necessarily ding you if you're like, you stepped away for like 10, 15 minutes to pick up lunch, right? Of course, they'll ding you if you're like an hour away from your desk. And so the quick options back then is there's a Chick-fil-A nearby. That was pretty easy to get. And then when I was in banking. There used to be this group called Hale and Hardy. So that was soup, salads, and sandwiches. That was pretty quick. And then there were some folks who try to stay healthy, their first few years, but it all fails. And so you go for chopped or just salad. Those were common. So you see those banker bros in New York back then when Patagonia was still a finance bro thing. They wore their Patagonias, their dress shirts, and their slacks, and their like shoes, and that was lunch.
Did you feel like people would go out to lunch more often than dinner? Did you think like was dinner more of a desk thing and lunch was like a potential social option, or was it how did that line up?
Yeah, definitely. So lunch was definitely more social in the sense, but that was also partially because you paid for it and it wasn't delivered.
Mm,
Whereas dinner was like it
right.
you had to order it on Seamless. So for us, it was after 6:30,
Yeah.
and back then it was $25 for us. They later boosted up to 30. But
Mm,
sometimes we'd find an excuse. So like you might have social where a bunch of analysts would pool their. So when I hit associate, we used to. I mean, I was so sick of eating Seamless then, and
hmm
I would just give my per diem to the analysts because there's only so much all you can eat tiramisu or whatever that you'd
Yeah.
be interested your first year out of college. And I mean, out of college, you think it's great, right? You're like, holy cow, like back then, $25, $30 was a lot of money. Nowadays, I can't buy anything. But you'd be like,
Jeez.
wow, I could be like, oh, especially in New York, right? So, like, as a poor student, right, I paid my way through, I worked my way through college, right? So, the whole idea is like, wow, you could eat sushi every night.
Yeah.
Is like, and I
Yeah.
could get a
Yeah.
drink. That was pretty
Yeah.
awesome as
Yeah.
a college.
Yeah. And get a cookie with it. Yeah. No, I know. I think that's one of the things that when you're young and really for anyone if you've never experienced that lifestyle is you pretty
Yeah.
much unlock all food options like around you. Whether and that's not necessarily like you're going to go to a $500 dinner like
Yeah.
every night, but like it's possible that you go there with like with partners or like a deal closes, and I think you get to see that side of the world that a lot of people don't. um and you're on expenses too, so like when we were ordering, we'd order like the most expensive salad and an extra steak, right? And it was like at first you're like, this is awesome, like Chipotle is just totally, I can get whatever I want, I have no concern of what's on the menu.
Avocado, right?
Avocado, I'll get, yeah, whatever. And I
Double
think
meat.
like right. And you see though, when you get in, you'll see that the people that have been in that for a while, they don't have that same like excitement about it. And they're not like ordering just like random, like just they're not
Yeah.
they're ordering kind of what eventually you just start to order what you want and what makes you feel good. I noticed that a lot of the associates tend to start to switch to salads. I think that's because like once you're older and you kind of like maybe your metabolism slows down or you're just more
Yeah.
conscious of it, you're just like, I don't want to live like this, I don't want to, I
Yeah.
don't want to just gain a bunch of weight. um that said, I think lunch, I would agree, I think lunch was seen as a little bit more social, as like you could get out, like we'd get out to lunch with like the partners and stuff, like they would take us out to lunch. Because weirdly, like that part of the day is kind of a lull, like it's kind of the low point of the day, at least for me. Like it wasn't really the highest intensity part, and it was more like people were just kind of like connecting. um, so yeah, the lunch stuff was really about um, a little bit more social, a little bit healthier, I would say, from what I experienced. Um, and I think that covers that. So then you get done with lunch, right? You come back to your desk. I found that there was more meetings in that part of the day with like VPs. As a junior person, that was like oftentimes the VPs would say, do you have some time this afternoon? And they wouldn't even put a time on my calendar. They would just say that. And I would say, yeah. And then they would come around to the desk because everyone's in the office, right? So I
Yeah.
think where people are probably used to with other students that if you want to meet with your classmates, you got to like schedule a time and like figure out where you're going to meet and all that. But in banking, the boundaries of space and time are kind of like like there's
Yeah.
no like boundaries to it. So it's like if if they need you, as soon as they need you, they're gonna like come and find you, and it'll be instant, which is what you want. Like that's what you want if you're trying to get something done as fast as possible. That's exactly what you want. You
Yeah,
don't want to like have to set a time, because then the 10 minutes before the meeting, maybe you're already ready and you'd
yeah,
rather just like go and get them at that time. So there's kind of like a little bit more. I think that's one of the things that makes the day more like sort of chaotic, but that's how, as a result of that, that's how things move forward faster. Because we've talked about on previous episodes, like speed is such a big part of banking. The speed of getting something done in a short span of time is such a core part of especially M&A advisory, that that's just the structure of how it works. So your day ends up kind of just however the people above you or the work coming in like comes in, it's just gonna come to you without interruption. So for me, it was like usually in the afternoons was when people would want to like sync up. They'd be like, okay, let's check in on the progress of like the stuff you've worked on overnight or in the morning. And it was kind of like that time of like everyone's there, let's all connect. Um, Sometimes people would go out for coffee, which is another thing that we
yeah,
can talk about. That as you'll probably learn as you go into the recruitment process, like the term coffee chat, it doesn't really, it's like, it's not really about the coffee. It's like people kind of go on these like social like chats, right? And it's the same as a coffee chat, sort of, but it's more friendly. It's not like you're trying to interview someone or impress them. It's just like a social thing.
yeah,
So people would go out for coffee. They would just go like next door or like somewhere, within 10 minutes, let's say, and grab a coffee, chat a little bit, and come back. That was another like common social food related activity that people would do.
yeah.
Yeah, any
Coffee was. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say any experience with that. That's the real coffee chat.
It's so it was more common. I'd say during the summer things are tend to be a bit slower, right? And the weather. I'm speaking from my experience in New York, so it's a bit different from
Hmm.
like Menlo.
Yeah.
But so like usually in New York, summer was a bit quieter, right, in terms of deal flow. Like a lot of the, you had whether the senior bankers, some of them were on vacation, others were at their houses in the Hamptons, or like you'd have, deal activity was a bit slower too. And so people wanted to go out a bit more, get the sunshine. So you'd have more of those informal coffee chats during the summer. When fall, winter, spring hit, of course, it's like snowy, raining,
Yeah.
and so those don't happen as much.
Right.
But every group is a bit different, right? We used to have like so for dinner. One of the things we did was we were allowed at Wells, depending on your admin, we pulled all our per diems together. So there used to be this place called Cafe China, which was a 1-star Michelin restaurant, which was,
Mm.
you'd be like, what are they giving you? Like in terms, but we'd have enough money to order if we pulled in our per diem. And then we had one analyst go and walk and pick up. So we'd avoid the delivery fee as well as the tip, because you don't have to tip them if it's like pickup. So that was our way, like 3 people, combine 3 tips and delivery fee. That's like another dish
Yeah.
right there. So
Interesting. Yeah, that's
that's
funny
one of the
because
things we
the
do.
dollar per hour for that analyst is definitely way higher than just hiring a delivery driver. But like something about
Yeah.
paying something that's just you have a captive a captive labor there, I guess, that you got to
Yeah.
use. Um, yeah, and that's another game. I mean, there's a lot of expenses games that people play. You'll definitely run into that. I think the other one commonly is Uber. So like people will like Uber to places. Um, a lot of the banks have rules around you can Uber after a certain time. So if it's after like 7 p.m. or something, you can get an Uber home. But where exactly is home and where you're going after work and stuff, and if you're coming from a like a client meeting or whatever, it's I think there's a lot of um what do they call it, payola or something, but there's a lot of those sort of like fringe benefits that come with the
Mhm.
job that are
Yeah.
sort of a part of the salary. And that's not just for investment banking, but also, any kind of major like white collar job. That's sort of one
Yeah.
of the things that comes with it. Um, Obviously, you want to stay within the ethics of that. You want to stay within the bounds of the law. But in practice,
Yeah.
as many of you will find, there is um, plenty of games that people play that are widely sort of accepted or overlooked. And I'm not going to tell you not to do those things, frankly. Like I think it's kind of just at your own discretion. Um, so something to look out for. I think as an
Yeah.
intern, if you're a summer analyst or summer associate watching this, yeah, don't don't try to play any games. But people definitely do. Um, Use up your per diem. That's all I can say.
So I will say on expenses, I don't know how it's like at other banks. Wells was unique in the sense that Wells went through a fake account scandal back in 2016. And so
Right.
so my advice to folks is do everything, whether it's work, email, expenses, is CYA. It's a
Yeah.
term we use a lot, cover your ass. And so there was like, I think it was like 2018 or 17 when I was in banking, where like they had their internal financial crimes unit team just audit the hell out of everyone.
Mm,
And so there's like a bunch of tech bankers and SF got fired because they were inappropriately
mm,
like reporting their expenses. So for example,
yeah.
for us, I mean, I don't know if things changed now, but we couldn't order dinner until after 6:30. We couldn't place in the order. And then we would get the seamless email. And then what happened in like other parts of the bank or other groups was you had folks who changed the timestamps on their
Mm,
like their order. Maybe they ordered at 6:28, and then they're like, ah, it's close enough 6:30,
yeah.
um, or they would like Uber places that weren't like they would take two Ubers or something, and then like, but it wasn't from the
Yeah.
office, and
Right.
then so they got caught and they got fired.
Right.
I actually had like one financial crimes consultant came up to me, like
Oh
gave me a
man.
call, and it was like, where were you on this day? And why did you order dinner early and whatever? Or they actually didn't even do that. It was actually sketchier than
Mm,
that. It was more like, they're like, I'm part of the financial crimes unit. And like, I need you to go to like the specific room. We're doing an internal investigation. I'm like, what the hell? I'm just like this
oh no.
junior banker. Right. So I
That's a
get called into
nightmare.
this like sketchy place. I have to go through security and I'm called, and they're like, we have someone on HR who's going to be on the call with you. I'm
Oh
like, am I
wow.
getting punked or something? So I show up there and they're asking me, is like, did you forge any receipts? I'm like, no. I'm like, where were you on like July 7th? I'm like, I don't know, at my desk working. What the hell would I be doing? It's like, what did
Yeah.
you order for dinner? And so I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then, but the thing was, I always operated on CYA. So I saved every single email receipt. So I'm like
Mm,
getting grilled on things that happened like 2 years ago. And like, nobody's going to
wow.
remember. And so I go back, I pull out my receipts, I send them to the financial crime. Like, look, dude,
Mm,
I ordered this. It was at 6:35. I did not change any timestamps, and they
yeah.
just ignored me after. But I was like, holy cow! So I'm like,
Damn.
I'm like,
Ryan Tan
don't.
stood on business. Ain't no
Well, you never.
snitch.
Well, you never
Yo.
know who's monitoring your calls, your emails. As a banker, all your
Yo.
emails are monitored.
I never
Um,
heard of him. I never met the guy. Dude, nice. That is well played. Well played, Ryan.
well, Well, I didn't know anything, and plus, like, I had all my receipts.
I don't
They're
know
like,
anything. That's
they
exactly
they
right.
don't they couldn't nail me for anything, right? And I did
Yeah,
everything by the
yeah,
book.
yeah,
So
yeah. I would bet that they probably do that to see if you would just snitch on
rat
yourself.
out people.
No,
Yeah,
you
maybe.
probably. I bet you that probably whatever 2 or 3 out of 10 get in
Yeah,
that situation and are like, well, I ordered this thing one time, and then it's like, okay, that's how. I mean, that's what the police do. And this isn't a
Yeah.
crime. This isn't a crime podcast, but like, yeah, the
Yeah.
police and these detectives and shit are gonna pressure you. They're gonna appeal to authority. They're gonna pull HR and do all this shit, and they're just fishing for something a lot of times. I mean, they can't. I
Yeah.
mean, even if like a lot. I mean, even if you and I'm not like again, don't do this shit, but like even if you did like forge receipts or it's like they've got such a burden of proof and it'd be such a hassle for them to like fire you and to get into all that shit that if you like genuinely don't admit it, it'll be hard for them to like do something about it. Now, ideally you're not in the situation where you've done anything wrong, but if you do something wrong, you need to like shut your mouth. That's just like and that's I'm not this isn't like dark advice. That's just like any lawyer, any person would tell you, like, don't, no reason to incriminate yourself. And you have every right not to. So um, maybe I'm going to get in trouble for
I will
saying that.
also
But
say, I will also say is in banking is like it's so heavily regulated.
yeah.
Like I know we're going off topic, but like don't do anything stupid where you could get canned because you're also
Yes.
a registered broker.
Yes.
You have your own FINRA registration, so there's like this Form U10. If you get fired for
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
for like
Infidelity. Yeah.
it's gonna
It's not.
it's public. It's all public information in all your
Right.
historical crimes and whatever, which is kind of funny in the sense is like if you ever look up your like former bankers, and this is where I'm like some of your former bankers will have like class C felonies from like college because they were using
Oh.
like fake IDs for drinking and
Ah,
buying
yeah,
alcohol.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So
That's
just
that's
like
that's a that's also a very important point I think that people need to think about is that you are in one of the most highly regulated industries and you need to play by the rules as much as you can within especially with regards to like criminal matters. Um like when it comes to like insider trading, when it comes to like I mean, really, any of that like material non-public information, MNPI, any of
yeah.
that stuff, if you're even just a slight reference to it to someone outside of like who needs to know about that, it's a very serious thing, and it will just not only will it end your career, but it'll also just it'll damage you, like it'll fuck you up for better lack of a better word, um, and also like as Ryan mentioned, it's like I think there is this like and especially I think our podcast we're a little more fun about it, right? We're being kind of fun,
Yeah.
but it is a very like serious like that is why a lot of the banking industry and the recruitment process is set up the way that it's set up because you need to go in and play by the rules. You are held to the same standards as a lawyer as far as conducting yourself, and you are the lawyer for the money. So you need to be very like squeaky clean. So even if you're screwing around with expenses and there's even like a suspicion of that or a rumor of that or like a vibe that you're doing that, it ruins the trust that people have with you. And that's something that is going to damage your reputation and damage your career progression. So really, you don't want to be like known as that person and you don't want to like be doing that kind of thing. Um, and another thing that I want to share that I was talking to a client last week about this is that there's not that many bankers who are doing billion-dollar deals in the world. Like in the total world, there's probably less than 1,000 people that are like that have done like that are currently doing billion-dollar deals. It's just it's such a large thing to happen in such a small group that a lot of the banking process is about you becoming a person that's like trusted to go and do that because someone could teach you how to navigate what the different deal structures are and how accounting works. Like you could learn and figure out how to do all of those things on a sort of mechanical basis. But the core thing is that people need to trust you. And in order for that to happen, by joining a bank and getting into the recruitment process and the entire, like all of these sort of like social idioms and weird kind of things that happen, That's all about like whittling it down to this like small group of very trusted people that can be inside of a room when billions of dollars is changing hands and not release information and not screw things up and not commit fraud and not, cause those issues. So if you're going into this, think of yourself as like that person. Are you that person? Can you become that person? Do you want to be that person? Because if not, then there's not like a long future in banking for you. It's bank, especially M&A advisory and just that advisory side. It's not really for people that want to like, I don't know, cut corners and like, shake things like that. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. That doesn't that all stems from so don't screw around on your expenses and save your receipts. Your takeaway. Okay, so we've made it to coffee chats, which are optional.
Yeah.
Then the day kind of goes on. I think a lot of the core work happened probably in that window from like, let's say like 3 p.m. to like 7 p.m. Right. And probably, and that's the window where pretty much everyone's in the office. So like the VP level, like the junior bankers, so analyst, associate, the VPs there, the MDs are usually there, partners, all that. So that's kind of like, I found that to be like kind of a core work time where I was like working on something and I would like iterate with someone, like the VPs would be there, and it'd kind of be a lot of like back and forth with that level up until like dinner, and people would like order dinner. At that time too, I think a lot of VPs would start to go home around that time.
Yeah.
And so we can talk about that. So that transition. So dinner for the most part, from what I experienced, was more of something that you would have at your desk, because that kind of long window from like 3 p.m. until whenever you're done, it's kind of like one continuous like slog of work. And that's like the main, I would say that's like the main like work day. Whereas like the morning part is kind of this like flux period. And that, so then, ordering dinner, like we said, it's like you can have whatever you want, more or less. I mean, there was an expense. I think, I don't know. It was a lot. It was, I can't even remember what it was, but it was probably like $35 or $50. But it was just like you could order pretty much whatever you want.
Yeah.
Any like funny stories or funny orders with that, Ryan? Any funny experiences with dinner?
Well, I'll say is like there's like as we mentioned before, like the life between an analyst and associate's a bit. As an associate, you get really sick of food. So for those who've been on the job a few years now, there's usually a more go-to order, right? They just like one click and then repeat, right? It could be like a salad, it could be like something green, something that's semi-healthy, right? Whereas if you're an analyst and you're starting off, it's like, let me try to get in tomorrow's lunch. I'm going to save some money, or let's see what deals we have. It's like, man, I could order 2 whole pizzas because there's a buy one, get one. It's like, I don't know why you're going to need 2 large pizzas, but sure. Yeah. So, or like, I mean, I think for me, though, there was one time where I got so sick of just eating, I just ordered from the bodega, which is in New York. It's like the corner store. And it was just, for me, it's like protein shakes and like, it was like muscle milks and fruit, because I just did not want to eat. Right? So
protein shake. So you're drinking protein shakes and fruit. That's a pretty good, you're doing like a full blueprint longevity diet. That's
I don't know about that. It was like
taking fiber like, supplements and
get some Greek yogurt. It was like, like, I don't want to eat. Everything's greasy. Everything's heavy.
Yeah.
Let me just get some groceries. And so it wasn't like, the one thing I like, because Wells also had a huge Charlotte office. So the nice thing about Charlotte folks was they had a Whole Foods nearby. So you could use your per diem at Whole Foods.
Oh, you'd get a lot. And so
you could get it, but you could get things that are cleaner, right?
Get a turmeric
now, if you're talking
shot.
About, well,
I don't know what those do, but I'm sure it'd be. Well, you're in San Francisco, so what is a turmeric shot?
I think of it's just one of those healthy, like inflammation reducing superfood drink, right? I've never had one of those, but I will say this. If you're looking for a funny story, in Charlotte, they used to have, so we're not allowed to order alcohol. Right? That's like a big no-no. You can't order alcohol in terms of on your per diem. You also can't order alcohol when you travel. The only time where you could order alcohol is maybe a closing dinner or like a client meal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there used to be a place in Charlotte where they call it the banker special. Now,
I like
they didn't
this
put
already.
anything on.
Yeah.
No, they didn't itemize it, right? So what they did was a banker special was like apparently 3 beers and like, I don't know, like a slice of pizza or fries or whatever. It was like you could get alcohol. But then when you got your receipt, it would say the banker special. So you'd have people order it, get the receipt, the banker special, and that was their way around alcohol. I mean, I wasn't in Charlotte, so I didn't know about this restaurant. And they also priced it so that it would come out to be right under the per diem. So that was like apparently something in the Charlotte office, and it was something that was that they catered to, because Charlotte has, it's a good big financial center. There's B of A's headquarters there, Wells, Wachovia. So that was when around until like apparently an analyst like told HR, and then so nobody could have the banker special anymore. But I don't drink, so it didn't really matter to me.
So what I love the most about that is the entrepreneur who figured that out. And I have to imagine that a banker probably told them, hey, if you do this, by the way, you'll probably have people coming in here every day. But I love capitalism so much. I mean, that's such a beautiful vignette of of American capitalism. Not only because the money that the bank people are spending is not theirs, but also that the entrepreneur has found a way to make the most out of this type of client in this environment. So I love that. Another thing that you're kind of alluding to, which I think is like, and people will kind of note this, is like we're talking about a lifestyle, right? And this is like your day is like you wake up and you're at a desk, and like there's standing desks and there's different ways, but like it's physically hard to do that, on top of the fact that you will experience cortisol at different points. Not always, it's not always like that, but it is very often that you're going to be seated in a chair at a desk, and that starts to wear on your body. And especially as you're making food decisions, that has a huge impact. I know that people think like, oh, metabolism slows down when you get older. Doesn't slow down as much as you think. What actually happens is that each year, if you gain 1 or 2 pounds per year, over the course of like 5 years, that's a lot of weight that you've added on, right? And what typically happens is that if you have a small caloric surplus each day, over the course of a year, that adds up to, let's say, 2-3 pounds. After 3 years, you've gained 10, 15 pounds. That's pretty noticeable. And I think even in the analysts who are like, oh, they're so young, they're immune to, physical reality. Like a lot of them, you look at their LinkedIn pictures from like before they started, and you like see them at their desk and you're like, wow, like that's rough, but it doesn't have to be that way. I think the difference is like when the people that are older, like a lot of the associates, I think are very healthy just because they have experienced that. I think a lot of people have experienced, from the time of being like 20 and you gain some weight and then you lose it. And then you kind of like figure out like, oh, I have to take care of myself. But you can go in. There's no reason that you as an analyst can't go in and be eating salads and doing all the right things from the beginning. You'll feel good. You won't gain that like analyst kind of gray aura loss, and you'll kind of fit in. No one's really going to question you that much. That said, there is this kind of, at least to me, I felt like sometimes dinner was like this cathartic release, because it was like, fuck, like this. I've been at this desk all day. I've had like no, stimulation. Whatever. And I have all this money and I can't even do anything. So then it's like, I want to get something like interesting. So, people would do a round, or they would order like a bunch of like fried chicken or like, sometimes I think, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I think like it's good to do that sometimes, but I
Yeah.
do think that like food becomes like a outlet for people in banking. I
Yeah.
think it's almost like kind of like a drug in that way, because it's like you're just stuck. Um, so it's just something to kind of look out for, is like if you like if you're channeling it into that, that's like not gonna be great for you. Um, People do then, there is like expense dinners, and people go to like nicer places too, which I think is a really cool experience to have living in.
Yeah.
You're probably going to be in a city that caters to that. So New
Yeah.
York, San Francisco, Chicago, Charlotte, and you'll be able to go to the best restaurants there, which is a cool experience to see. Personally, I'm not like a huge foodie, so to me, it doesn't. I don't think I get as much out of it as other people do, but for some people, they
Mhm.
know all the restaurants, they love that. It's part of the experience. And if you love that experience, then you probably will really like banking. So that's something
Mhm.
to look forward to.
Yeah, I have plenty more stories that you want.
Yeah. You got a horror story or a funny story?
I don't know about a
Dinner
horse.
story?
I mean, I guess the lifestyle's all. It's like, I mean, for me, when I hit associate, so in New York, you'll have a lot of 24-hour CVS. And
Hmm.
this can be really dangerous.
Yeah.
And so usually around 10 o'clock, because you have a late night, you still have like 3-4 hours to go. I would make my rounds. I'd go downstairs. I'd go to the CVS. I'd buy candy, chips, and whatever. And I'd just feed my analysts. And they all
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
fat. So well, that was not my intention. It was more like we're all stressed. So like, right, when you're stressed, it's like first year
Stress
15
you.
is very real, right? You want the sweets, the fatty foods. So I get them candy and like veggie straws. And one of my
Yeah.
analysts really loved Oreos, so I got him a Costco size box of Oreos.
Oh,
Um,
man. That's a
so it's
nightmare.
like you have like I mean, you become good friends, right? There's like the whole bullpen. You're in the trenches together.
Yeah.
But I will
Yeah.
say, healthy habits will go a very long way. We did have people with substance issues, right?
Mm.
So I mean, they didn't do it at work. We had a senior banker who drank a lot. He had a drinking problem. Sometimes he showed up drunk to work. He later got pushed out, let go.
Mm.
Um, um, then we had a few folks who vaped. Right? This was when before vaping was becoming a huge thing, right?
Hmm.
Apparently, it's more common now, from what I heard. Is like people vape to de-stress. And then we had another person that would do like cocaine, which I
Mm.
hear is also pretty common because stimulates you, keeps you up. A
Mm.
few folks at Adderall. I personally say, look, your health, it's not worth it. Like
Hmm.
career, like keep your health right. After work, don't go party. If you don't have to drink, don't drink. Avoid
Yeah.
substances. If you could exercise, great. Try to get as much sleep. And on weekends, try to eat clean. It's a marathon. You will. I'm sure you mentioned this before, but like we always joke that it's like there should be like a general surgeon warning on your offer letter in terms of like this job is like bad for your health and like may reduce your life expectancy, whatever. But
Mm.
you see the photos of before banking, and you see because we had people who had their like employee photos on their Outlook, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you,
Their first
you
day.
meet them in person, right? Their first, and you're like, the hell happened to you,
Brutal. Yeah. Brutal.
right?
Yeah. 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 I mean,
Like they were, yeah,
and I think so. I think your game as the lifestyle of a banker, which we've not gotten to the end of the day yet, but I think that
yeah,
your goal, your game is to reduce harm, and you're not going to be able to completely do away with that. You're going to not get enough sleep. You're gonna have to sit in a desk all the time. You're probably going to miss workouts. Your social life is not going to be as rich as it is in school, but your goal is to reduce harm. And so you should try to avoid things that are totally uh, don't give return to that. So, like Ryan
Yeah.
mentions, like alcohol, cocaine, like hard drugs and shit, that is going to really fuck you up. That's going to really do some damage. I think I've always been, I mean, alcohol, it kind of speaks for itself. Like it's not, there's no like enhanced performance enhancement to alcohol. There's no real reason to do that. Um, Obviously people drink, I don't drink, Ryan doesn't drink, but people drink, and it is something that can get out of hand. The second one is that he mentioned is cocaine. And I never caught any sense of this happening. And I'm always surprised to hear that it does happen, because it really doesn't seem like it would be performance enhancing at all. I don't really know how people end up falling into use of that, but that's extremely dangerous. There was someone that died. I
Oof.
think he was an associate from Jeffries in last year or 2 years ago in Texas, and they found
Oh
that
yeah.
he had been doing cocaine, and there was some kind of adulterant in it, or I think there was fentanyl in it, or some kind of. So that is 100% something you should avoid and never really bring near the office or be involved in. And hard drugs, the
Yeah.
last one, that kind of covers like people go to concerts and do Molly, or people do
Mhm.
a bunch of Adderall beyond like prescription doses and things like that. I mean, that goes without saying that that stuff is really, really going to hurt you. The three that I think people do that we have an article on our website, at kind of a blog post about this, is the triangle, which is
Oh,
stimulants, caffeine, and nicotine. That's the three I think that most people, if they get into anything, they use because those things are sort of the least harmful. Um,
yeah.
Caffeine being the principal one that many people use, and use in extreme excess. I mean,
Yeah.
many people drinking 2 energy drinks a day, so like 400 milligrams of caffeine, huge amounts of coffee at all hours of the day. That's like a very widely abused drug, and it's pretty accepted. um, I knew two people, which were probably the two best people that I knew in banking, that
Yeah.
didn't drink caffeine at all. And I think that if you can find a way to do that, I don't live a caffeine free lifestyle, so I can't say like you should definitely do that. But
Mhm.
like caffeine can cause problems. There was someone that died in New York at B of A, and he had been staying up super late and drinking a bunch of energy drinks, and he had a heart problem that I guess he didn't know about, and he had a heart attack from that. So caffeine
Yeah.
is less harmful, but it's still serious. Nicotine is the second one. Nicotine obviously is, people vape. A lot of people use Zins, pretty widely used. That also just increases your stress levels, which just adds to how difficult things will be. I don't think that there's a big performance enhancement to nicotine. Um, but again, it's common. People do it. Um, Last one being like Adderall, stimulants, people on prescriptions. I think there's a healthy level of prescription that people can be on, that's from a doctor and whatever, but you should really not go around you should not seek those out outside of medical advice. You should, follow all kind of medical advice. If you're going to take any prescription drugs, um, you should not you don't need to go and buy that from someone. If you feel like you need it, you can go to a doctor and get it. It's not, you're not a you don't need to be a child about that. You can be an adult about
Yeah.
that. And if that's right for you, then go speak to a doctor and figure that out. So all of that said, I think there's very obvious things to avoid.
Yeah.
Um, and your goal is like, how do I get through this period? Let's say it's the 2 year period as an analyst, and you're thinking you'll leave after that, or even if you're going to go long term, how do I get through this with the minimum amount of harm? And food and diet and sleep and avoiding drugs and things like that is the path that you should take to try to come out with the best physical outcome you can.
Yeah. And I guess I'll share some tips and tricks. So as you probably see right now, I'm chewing gum, and so It's that's one trick that you can use. It's like get some sugar-free gum.
Mm.
It helps. It's proven to de-stress you in terms of just slow things down. So I popped so much gum when I was in banking.
Mm.
Um, it's so the whole science behind it is like your nerves naturally calm down a bit and you're able to focus it better because the idea is if you could pause and eat, that means you weren't chased by a predator during evolutionary times. And so
Ah.
your mind releases like de-stressing hormones. So that
Okay.
was one thing I did. The other thing is like, look, if you don't drink, lots of respect, right? Like I think the people I was closest with were a lot of Mormons in the finance
Mm.
industry because they can't drink. Um, and so it was really annoying, but I think it's more accepted now. But back then, when I would go into like happy hour, or whatever, and if I didn't drink, people would just be a pain in my ass, be like, why don't you drink whatever? And so there's like tips and tricks. You could use like a Diet Coke with like a slice of lime. Okay, so that would be with
Yeah.
like Coke and rum. Then you have just club soda. Tell them to put some salt, put some lime around it, right? That's like your gin and tonic. Or just freaking get like cranberry juice and tell them to like, do one of those orange peels and stick an umbrella with a cherry. And then you get it, and then like don't drink it holding your hand, and everyone shuts up, right?
That is
And that's
advanced.
just
That is the
the
advanced
easiest.
maneuver.
And you just tell the dude, it's like, look, I'll still pay you the same, right? Like you
Mm.
could write it up, just don't. I mean, but nowadays it's much more accepted. Like mocktails are more
Yeah.
common. I think people are okay with you not drinking, but
Hmm.
like, man, I saw alcohol creates a lot of problems, and I
Yeah.
had colleagues who, after happy hour, they'd be like, they go drinking, they black out, they text me later, be like, Ryan, I'm in bed with somebody I don't know. And I'm just like, oh boy, you
Yeah.
okay? And be
The
like,
biggest problem with that from a professional perspective is that you could get
yeah,
hit up at any time. So if you're
yeah,
drunk or if you're hungover and they email you, you can't be like, no, no. That's the thing that we're kind of explaining is like it's a lifestyle. It's not like a job that
yeah,
you kind of like walk in at 9, leave at 5, and then you can do whatever. So I think that's where a lot of those things make it difficult to perform. Not to mention health or ethical reasons, but just
yeah.
like from a performance perspective, you need to be consistent, available, reliable, all those things. Um, okay, let's move past into the post
Mhm.
dinner time.
Yeah.
So there's kind of the post dinner time. I think let's say it's whatever 9 p.m. ish until very late.
Mhm.
Um, this kind of ekes into what's called goblin hours. I would say after midnight or so. But the idea is, the VPs start to head home. It's basically just junior bankers in the bullpen. Things start to get a little loose. People, I mean, yeah, people might hit a vape. They may be just a little more like, I don't know, throw a football around kind of raucous crowd, right? Because there's more of a it's like the kind of like adults are gone, right? And the
Mhm.
it's now Lord of the Flies. And everyone has a ton of work to do still, oftentimes. I was always amazed in banking at like 7 or 8 or 9. You'd look around the office and everyone is like still like fully working. Like there does not seem any sense of people slowing down. And that was like coming from like I was in consulting, it was like I was kind of blown away because it was like the peak of the day from a work perspective is like that time. The VPs are
Yeah.
gone and like a lot of the work gets done, a lot of this slide work and Excel work and those types of things. That's when it actually the work is actually performed. So that goes on really until you're done. If you have some kind of deadline, you're going to work until the deadline. By the way, I know we're going a bit over time, but we started late, so we'll just keep going. I think we have
Yeah.
a few viewers actually. So thanks
Nice.
for watching. And if you have any questions or comments, you can leave a question or comment in the chat. So yeah, that late night is really when you get a lot of the work done. churning models. A lot of the juniors, at least I felt like there was a lot more camaraderie around that time, and that's kind of maybe what you're alluding to. But yeah, I think that takes us sort of to the end of the day. So you work until you're done. You get home, you crash, you get up again, and you do it over and over. And it varies. I think for the most part, for the minimum, people were there until 10, even on the shortest days. So they would be there at least
Yeah.
pretty much 12 hours. And then if you had a lot to do, you'd be there till whenever you're done. So it could be 2, 3 in the morning, later.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all for the show. Anything else, Ryan, to throw in there at the last minute?
Treat it like a marathon. I know you're young, you think you're invincible, but man, it's your body's not invincible. Just look at your senior bankers. Like none of your senior banker, I'd say there is a survivor bias. So like you'll see a lot of senior bankers with no hair, gigantic, belly, beer gut, right? Some are divorced. Like take care of your health, and then like it's like don't just assume you're invincible. Like we've seen colleagues, nobody tells you about their health issues unless you're a few years in and you really know about them.
Yeah.
And then you only hear about the ones who died that are public, and so
Right.
take care of your health. It's not worth dying over.
Yeah. All right. Take care of business. Don't snitch. Order salads. Don't do drugs. Don't drink much. We're becoming an ethical show, Ryan. I think we're becoming we're becoming a lifestyle brand. But if you want to learn more about anything, you can check out some of the articles on Offer Goblin. You can subscribe to this channel, like this if you see it. We're going to start posting these podcasts on other platforms as well. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.